Hello everybody, my name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I am an author and robot, and today we're going to do an analysis, critical read of Stay Tuned by Liam Baker. Now you might be asking, what is Stay Tuned? It is an independent novel, and how did I find it? I often wonder that myself the last couple of times I've tried looking for it. But Stay Tuned is a dystopian novel that is from a more right-wing perspective on culture and technology wars and politics. Obviously, more recently, we have seen a lot more left-wing or a lot more left-wing dystopian or dystopian novels where the main bad guy or the dictator is a Cheeto man and some form of satirized Donald Trump. And this is from the other side of the perspective, where Trump's not involved in this at all, but it is from a more right-wing or center-right perspective of the problems of today in dystopian. And if you're not sure how you come to the elements of dystopia, I actually just did a video on satire and how it relates to dystopia. So if you would like to check that out after this, the link will be somewhere. But before we get started, I would just like to bring up Lemoy. What is Lemoy? It is this channel's best feature, best show, my favorite show on YouTube, where I give you guys a prompt. You guys write whatever kind of story you'd like, as long as it includes the prompt. Submit it in the description down below. And the first video of the month is dedicated to the community and you guys. So if you would like to join the Paddy Wagon and submit a short story for December, the new contest is started and it is linked down below. So now, on to Stay Tuned. This book actually found me. I was watching Timcast IRL one night, and it came up in the super chat that somebody had written a dystopian novel, and they thought the hosts would like it. And it's kind of a ballsy move to say, hey, there are over 30,000 concurrent watchers right now. I'm going to say you should go read my book, hosts, and also that's not including the hundreds of thousands of watches that would follow the stream later. So, big ballsy move to say you should come read my story, hosts, on a live YouTube show with a massive audience. So myself loving good dystopian novels and also seeing that the creator of this book and I had something in common, the Tim IRL podcast, I decided I'd pick it up, check it out, check out an indie creator and see what I found. I'm gonna be honest, if it hadn't been for the way that this novel had found me, I likely would not have picked it up on first glance. And that's probably because of the interior layout. The font design, I don't know what it is, but upon opening and doing the preview thing, the layout just bothered me. And I'm not sure if it's the size, I'm not sure if it's the font, if it's the indentation, if it's the spacing, but there's something about the interior design that makes it hard to read and also makes it kind of a turnoff to look at. I'm not sure why. But maybe that is just me. But still, because of the way this story was introduced to me, I decided I wanted to read it. I wanted to see what indie authors on the right wing or on the center were doing, people that were watching the same stuff as me, and I wanted to support an author. So I bought the book, read the book. We're going to do a breakdown of what worked, what didn't work, and the missed opportunities I saw, and there's going to be a special feature at the end of this of well, you're gonna have to watch to find out what the special section of this video is gonna be. So without further ado, grab your drink, your food, get comfortable, and let's read this like a writer would. A synopsis. Frank and his garbage men crew, Tino and Jerome, are doing their normal course, picking up the trash and talking about what they're going to spend their next paychecks on, because that paycheck is a-comin'. Tino's planning to get his hands on this new technology device called The Look. It's basically a VR-style headset that keeps the users connected to the internet, the media, and social media at all times. It also has the ability to augment reality into whatever you want it to be. You can change how other people see you, the style of the universe around you, all of that jazz. Tino is beyond excited to get this new device and to start trying it because he, loves forward technology, while Jerome and Frank are kind of skeptical, but neither of them really are into technology anyway. I just have to fix that. Here we go. At lunch, a news broadcast shoots across the lunchroom, telling everyone about the weird and backwards people fleeing the cities to forsake technology. These crazy people, seriously. Frank and his crew continue going on their route after lunch, and at this point, they're doing the off-grid section of the city. And off-grid is exactly what you might assume it is. It's not connected to this digital grid where their car would drive automatically, but it's something that they have to switch the garbage truck into manual and drive through manually. They have this personal game where they treat the area like a racetrack and they try to beat their own time scores. When the day is done, the men clock out and Frank takes the bus home, lamenting his life and incurring the ire of some random woman on the bus whom he makes eye contact with. When Frank arrives home, his daughter is ungrateful that Daddy didn't bring her anything on payday. His wife's laying in her underwear in their bedroom upstairs while trying to figure out some advertising ideas because that's her job and her creative process requires her to be comfortable and relaxed and mostly naked. Frank and his wife Maggie decide that the family's going to go and eat in honor of it being payday. I mean, why not? At the restaurant, we learn that Maggie has an advertising ritual where you kind of dress up your potato because it's a potato restaurant and label it. Then you come up with basically a politically correct sales pitch that you would drape over that potato to get the sales numbers. Joy, her daughter, does well while Junior, her son, fails the task completely. The news comes on the radio that's at the table and reminds the population of the evil hill people who have fled the city and forsaken cultural norms of technology. Once the family returns home, Frank goes to the garage to look for toys that he can bring to work for Jerome to work out the off-grid route so they can kind of try to get faster at it. He also introduces this thing called the ledgers. It's a document of compiled pages of belongings and changes tracked by somebody else, and Frank had picked up these papers from the garbage somewhere, studied them before deciding that he was going to add his own thoughts and his own experiences to the ledger on the empty pages as if it were a diary. Frank then reflects on how he's prophetic because things that he thought about or said happened, and he knew that he was prophetic because he'd written those ideas down on the ledger. Once he goes back to review the ledger to prove that he was prophetic, he actually finds that he was absorbing the thoughts of the previous owner of the ledger, and then he starts realizing that maybe his thoughts aren't his own, and he was picking up what other people were telling him and thinking those were his own thoughts. Moving on. Maggie announces that the wellness center is sending someone over to do a wellness check on the house the next day to make sure that cohesion and mental health are a top priority and doing well in the household. When Frank gets to work, Tino is already wearing his new look and not paying attention to anything around him because why would you? And then trying to mess with his look and he gets mad. So Jerome and Frank just give up on trying to talk to Tino anymore for the time being. During lunch, Tino goes on a rant about how selfish the evil hill people are by taking their kids out into the middle of nowhere and away from modern society and screwing them for life. And those people have guns, they're dangerous and stuff. Gosh, crisis, take those kids away. Back at home, mother, Maggie, and daughter, Joy, are stressed about the upcoming aptitude tests that the kids are going to have to take, and use this as a way to get Frank to take them to the mall for a shopping therapy. Whoop whoop. The family first goes to this trendy shop that embraces Joy and Junior with fashion that makes their butts look big, shoulders wide, and the opposite sex entranced by just how beautiful you now are. Maggie tries to be cool like her daughter, but she has a lumpy body and is laughed at until the store owners, the employees, feel pity and give her a coupon for a sister store, but it's for the ladies, not the teenagers, but the ladies. The shop is filled with fog, moaning, and hot chocolate. While Maggie's pampering herself at the ladies' store, Frank's at the food court with the kids. A news report comes on and updates everybody about the Hill people refusing a state wellness check. Joy insults the Hill people as inbreeders, and when Junior tries to defend them, she calls him an inbreeder too. She also then posts online about how her brother is an inbreeder, and then Frank learns that his son has also gotten into a fight at school and has been given drugs to make him calm down. Frank demands that Joy take the post down about her brother, and she only agrees to if Junior denounces the Hill people, so he does. Everyone returns home, and then Frank goes off on his own to the garage to write in his ledgers and talk to his dog, and comes to the realization that if you don't like the Hill people, you're part of the problem, according to society. The next morning, the media kicks off a report on a Waco-style raid on the Hill people, where obviously all of them end up dead. The gender-neutral wellness agent, Charlie, hears Joy's complaint about how her parents won't let her have a new look, and she needs one, specifically for her mental health. Eventually, the wellness agent clears the family to get coupons to get the basic model of the look for free, though the agent almost stumbles upon Frank's ledgers in the garage while making sure that they don't have the money to afford the looks on their own. It's only the dog that stops the wellness agent from picking up the ledgers because the dog lunges at the guy. The family then goes to the shop and picks up their not basic model looks, but their upgraded models because they wanted some special features. The family is immediately in love with the new digital perfect look of themselves and the world. Back at home, Frank hides in the garage alone, not wearing his look, and looking through his physical books, petting his dog, and writing in the ledger about the events. Here he expresses how he dropped out of college because he felt unwelcomed in the space and that the school was training students to be agreeable but not successful or smart. Those weren't a priority. At work, Tino gets pissed off when Frank and Jerome interrupt him during his looking time. See what I did there? I know, I'm brilliant. At lunch, the trio gets into a fight over who is brainwashed. It's Tino. No, it's Jerome. No, it's Tino. No, it's Jerome because he's a backwoods inbreeder or something. I don't know. Frank just kind of pussies out and doesn't say anything. Really, the whole day is just the three fighting each other and being mad at each other. Back at home, the family ignores everybody else, and a new report comes out condemning anyone who refuses to wear their looks. As you can see, I'm wearing one, so I don't get in trouble. Now, not only that, but they are also now being diagnosed as alt-reality, mentally ill. The family, all but Frank, agree that something needs to be done about these dangerous groups of people that are growing in society. A news report the next day calls anyone not wearing a look a blank, since they appear in the Vision Repertoire VR augmentation as just a blank mannequin body with no other features. The news report also calls them bigots and a crime against humanity. Then everyone wearing the look parrots the same thing. Jerome decides, because he is a big brain, that after seeing that hostility towards people not wearing the looks, it is now time to take life into his own hands by going after the guy that's already been hostile towards him since he's gotten the look. Yeah, he takes some shots at Tino. Tino activates other lookers, which is what everyone wearing the look is called, and the mob beats Jerome until he apologizes, as you might expect. Frank returns home and talks to his dog about everything that happened. He gets into a brief fight with his wife about not wearing his look. He pacifies her by agreeing to do what she wants. Back at work, the trio are doing their normal job when Tino falls off the back of the truck and Jerome almost runs his head over on purpose with the dump truck. Then he goes on a rant about how Tino is trash, and you know what needs to happen to trash? It needs to get thrown in the compactor and it needs to be crushed. You hear that, Tino? Get crushed. After the emergency vehicles show up, Jerome punctuates with, "Bro, it was just a prank. I was just joking. It was just a bunch of fun, man. What's your problem?" Tino says everything that happened and lets the emergency people know. Frank and Jerome just seem confused about why the frick would Tino be so pissed off, you know? Why didn't he laugh? The joke was so good. Oh, I know what's wrong. It's all technology's fault. Technology and society made Tino lose his sense of humor at the joke of being almost murdered by his friends. Bring in society. On Frank's way home, he sees one of his neighbors getting kicked out of his house by the wellness agencies and the government's strong buddies. The dude wasn't following protocol for being a good member of the community, so you get what you friggin' deserve, right? When Frank gets home, he slips on his look to see what's going on in society. A new announcement declares government has passed something to punish blanks for even existing. Everybody in the family is excited. The media calls on people to love and share the information because it is so important for social cohesion. Joy attacks Frank for his failure at social cohesion and how it could affect the family. Taking away their money, getting them arrested. Frank agrees that he'll wear his look more and share more stories. Later, Maggie's like, "Ugh, I'm so hot and bothered. Let's do it, Frankie Poo." And they do the do. with their VR headsets on. The kids complete their aptitude tests. Joy is set to become a newscaster, while Junior's a failure and gonna be a garbage man. Success in the future isn't about what you know, it's about what you're willing to do for the community involvement, and also not being a bigot. You want a future? Don't be a bigot. The family goes out to celebrate at the mall. The newest, hottest shopping item is a black burlap sack. Hot. When you're wearing the look, you can project just whatever you want your outfit to look like, and that's how it will look in the VR augmented reality. Junior learns that he can change his avatar to a woman, in fact, and what teenage boy wouldn't, quite honestly. The news introduces the new deplorables of society. That's right, it's not the alt-realitors, it's not the hill people, it is now the street people. The street people are extremists who refuse to join modern social norms and customs, who check out of society, who are killing people and living in the sewers and eating garbage. Lookers are encouraged to assault street people before street people assault them. It's great if you do it. Now, get your badge today for assault. It's called neighborhood protection. Oh, yeah, and in the report about these street people, Frank spots Jerome among the group. So he's no longer part of modern society. Between thinking about how Jerome is a street person, the morning yoga session that is reminiscent of a cultist brainwashing session, and how you could be a savior to the street people, more propaganda is fed through every little thing about how evil the street people are and how they need to be destroyed. Frank theorizes the stories about the blanks attacking and rising crime rates are all lies just for certain people to gain power. And so he determines that he is going to find the street people and maybe find a way out of all of this, maybe to break whatever is going on. He sneaks out of the house late at night with his dog and in hopes to find someone. He follows the poop marks on a map to guess where the homeless are in a style that's kind of like the San Francisco poop service, where it's marked on the map, because wherever the poop is, that's where the homeless people are hanging out. But on this night, he's just scouting, so he doesn't run into anybody. He returns home before the family notices that he's gone, and at breakfast, Joy declares that she was raped. But what she means by rape isn't actually what you're thinking, probably. Actually, what she means is someone made a video rendering of her and she feels like she was raped, and the boy behind it needs to be punished. Media, social media, and classmates gang up on this random high school boy, calling him a rapist, and to toss him out of society even though he didn't actually hurt anyone. All of it is just a gross setup of lies. Frank writes everything down in his ledgers in the garage. The next night, Frank sneaks out again and finds the street people for real this time. During his quest, he makes some major realizations that he's been living a lie and he's a coward, though he's already opined on this before. While slipping through the alleyways in this commercial district, Frank runs into a young woman named Ellie, who is part of the street people resistance. She is like so super hot and loves coffee. OMG. Haven't had coffee in like 5 ever, yo. And she immediately shows Frank back to the underground society where he sort of flirts with her and he hides that he's married. She explains how she is a failed artist who got kicked off of every social media platform for having the wrong ideas before being forced underground. She also complains that they're in hell now because real men don't exist anymore. Frank was going to disagree with her, but he didn't want to offend her, so he didn't say anything. Upon entering the factory where the street people are hiding, Frank's accused of being a spy. He's taken to an old man named Cook, or Kook, who goes on about how politicians have sold out society and created dependent plebs so they wouldn't destroy themselves, but that they also lack purpose and meaning of life, so everyone is miserable. Now the communities are purging people because there aren't enough resources, and apathy has turned to hate. The technocrats have taken over by targeting those who wouldn't buy their products. Gosh freaking darn it. Don't you hear me, people? For some reason, despite living underground and experiencing all of this, the other street people laugh at this old man and think that he's crazy, thus the name Kook. Then immediately after walking away from him, they agree to whatever he was just saying, but whatever. Jerome mentions they have a basic plan for taking back society block by block, but Frank needs to keep it on the DL. So Frank goes home. Frank fantasizes about having sex with the sexy street woman Ellie. Over the next few months, he sneaks out to see them at night and brings Ellie special gifts in order to win the favor, including chocolate and coffee and lady products. Things escalate with the media demonizing street people more by repeating the phrases problematic, rapist, violent, crime, murder, and everything is all the street people's faults. Your milk spoil? Probably the street people's fault, by the way. Frank uses this time to understand how the technocrats are censoring their dissenters by simply not allowing them to talk, and now everyone in society is complicit in the damages because they've been part of cheering bad things to happen to other people. While Frank's walking his dog, there is a minor power failure. After Frank reviews the news, he sees articles are posted and deleted so fast that he gets multiple stories until the final conclusion comes out that the street people are behind the power failure and must be stopped by means of death. When Frank gets home, his family freaks out about him having the dog and demands that he gets rid of it. The next day, Wellness shows up and Frank is required to get rid of the dog. He's told that he can bring it to the car and then the car will drive it off to whatever random location he says, and they'll just leave the dog there. Frank just complies. He doesn't fight. He doesn't try to save the dog. Nothing. Frank then goes to bed regretting the decision. And this time, the power goes out for real, and it goes out for a very long time. His family is screaming and hiding because they don't want to be seen outside their VR masks. They look like a bunch of flabby maggots. Like, seriously, that is pretty much their descriptions. Frank slips out of the house, thinking that he can go find the street people and his dog, and they can do something for real this time. They would know what to do. Some of the neighbors run up to him complaining about the current paradigm as they run, and they vow that this is the time that it's going to end and they are going to fight it. Chaos breaks out as street people flood the food and shopping districts to riot and destroy and take everything for themselves, whatever they can. Frank runs into Jerome in the food district, and he finds Jerome with a sledgehammer, killing all of the lookers that he can find with just a nice big swing and crack. Jerome's pretty much a psychopath at this point, who's given up on life and goes on a short tirade of,
"No one cares. Not even about themselves. I'm happy to fight back. I'm happy to kill. That's my purpose now."
And then tells Frank that he'll understand once he reaches that point. Frank finds Ellie in the government district in front of a poorly painted stick-figure mural she made on the side of a building. It's just got a looker laughing and punching a street person who is in pain. Pretty much what you might expect. She asks Frank if she's any good at painting, and he says yes, even though he's like, this is so freaking bad. And she goes, "Are you serious? You really think so? Can we put this on shirts and sell it and make money and become famous?" And again, Frank agrees.
Okay, simp.
Rioters file into the government district along with government employees with guns and armored vehicles. Frank pulls Ellie into the tall grass that hasn't been taken care of because everybody's been living in VR anyway, but he wants to keep her safe from the attacking vehicles and the ensuing rioting. She smacks him, screams, and wants to be let go because her painting is going to be destroyed and she needs to protect it. Frank loses his patience over this and decides that now is the time to rape this woman of his fantasies. He determines that he has no autonomy or control of his own. He's just whatever society calls him, and society has told him he's a monster and he's a rapist, so why not? When he's done, he returns home all casually and finds his dog waiting for him, and that is the end. Yep. So now for the good. The book almost immediately gave off this vibe of Brand New World meets They Live for me, but it's Brave New World where the savages live among the better people all along, and the better people knew it. There's also some Wall-E and 1984 vibes in here between the censorship and the super fat people part of the world building. I absolutely love ironic naming of things. So when one of the popular singers on the radio and pretty much the only pop culture icon that was mentioned in this story comes up as being named Jaded, and her songs are about being sexually assaulted in this poppy, sexy way, like it's this great thing, and there are these visuals where she's obviously being touched by men, I like it. I love absolutely ironic things. That's also what makes a good satire. That's also what makes a lot of fun in Dystopian. And I had kind of wished that there was going to be more stuff with maybe Jaded or stuff with culture, just being ironic. She didn't have to keep coming in or out or anything, but if you mention different parts of society that have changed because of this dark irony, oh, more stuff like Jaded would have been great. I loved the introduction of the goal of the look is to change the way that you see the world, but I wish that it had been introduced earlier in the book than it did, and without Frank already commenting on how he was living a lie and how everything is bad, because it would have been more sinister. I also loved the idea of the look. I loved the overlay of a false or augmented reality, creating an avatar of what you want others to see, and that you could filter what types of selves that other people saw. So like you could create an avatar for your parents to see, and then you could create an avatar for other people that you might want to be sexually interacting with to see. So then you could completely hide yourself from your family while also just kind of hanging out there. The author also made a good choice in using the terms blank for the people who don't conform, who are just faceless mannequins to the lookers. Really, and I really liked how the media and articles made every bad person in the article a blank and basically cast everyone who didn't wear the look as the same person. One blank was just as guilty as the others because they were all seen as the same person. The idea of the unity form, which was the black burlap sack basically, was really cool, with getting people to wear the same black sack and pretend and imagine that they themselves were individual and stylish. More than halfway through the novel, when Frank and the family go to the potato restaurant with their looks on, it is a great idea for the restaurant to be completely dark and decrepit because everybody was wearing the looks. So what's the point of upkeep in any building when you're not even seeing the building for what it is anymore? I mean, who cares about reality when you can let reality go to hell because you've got the reality correctors right here. There is a part in there where the narration said being raped was now an accomplishment. Honestly, that line was hilarious. And I honestly wish the book had had more of that, where it was tongue-in-cheek and being like, and now stubbing your toe is worthy of receiving $5 or something. So that would have brought the dystopian over the top with it leaning into satire. The book also didn't use like a system to slowly get more people to do worse and worse things in order for that award. Like it didn't start out with helped community and then make the jump into felt bad for a day, was honest about feelings, depression award, almost killed self award, been raped award. You know, like it didn't go down a tunnel, and I wish that it would have, because it would have showed the slow creep of what was being used here. There was also a very interesting dynamic between Frank helping the street people, breaking out of society, but then once he returned back to his normal world, he quickly became comfortable with the status quo again, and the drone of the regular day, and the comfort and safety of knowing what was expected of him, and the complacency that came along with that. Now, where I felt this story had difficulty, the biggest turnoff for me was actually how heavy-handed the politics were in this book. Like, I get it, and one of the things that you actually should know is that George Orwell was a socialist. He called himself a socialist, but you couldn't tell that from the story that he was writing, because he wasn't writing from a political perspective. He was writing from a perspective of what he experienced through the world, but then took it to the worst conclusion. And that's sort of how you get the distinction between Stay Tuned and When No One Is Watching, and then the great classic dystopian novels. In my opinion, the bad things in here aren't absurd enough or normalized enough that it's just accepted as part of how life works. Like in Brave New World, when of course you have alphas and betas and omegas, and of course there are people bred for different purposes, and of course if you're feeling down then you take your soma. This book felt like it was missing that because the whole way through Frank was judging it, and so it came off as kind of preachy. You know, Frank is immediately against the mob stuff as it's going on from the start with the hill people. He doesn't show us his awakening into what is really happening. He's already there, but he just kind of flip-flops back and forth of, well, I don't really know what's going on, but here's me opining for 4 pages, but here's me being ignorant again. In the same way that I saw When No One Is Watching was trying to make a political argument for slavery and racism in America. Where this also hurts it is that there is no subversion, and so I'm being beat over the head in a way that's not funny. That speaks more for what felt like the frustrations of the author in looking at modern day society, rather than satirizing it into a dystopian and making a critique of how bad things could get. Subtlety is important for subversion, and there was none of it in this book. If the propaganda in the story had been less about identifying the enemy and more about focusing on uplifting the self and uplifting the community as if they are the same, then you would, and doing right by others without naming who was bad, just these are the behaviors you want, and these are the behaviors that will make you good, and these are the behaviors of a good societal person. And these are the behaviors of a bad person, as opposed to just straight up calling, we're going to name those people the street people and just call them bigots and rapists all the way through. Like, you could escalate to that, but that's how it was the whole way through, so there really was no escalation in the tactics, in the presentation, in the targeting, and so it just became repetitive propaganda in its own right, in a way. The next thing that bothered me kind of piggybacks on the above, but conversations between characters tended to be jumpy and sometimes came out of nowhere because the characters were designed to say something specific rather than to just live their lives and deal with the circumstances. Conversations were set up to make political statements instead of navigating life and talking about the weird stuff as it came. There was also some awkward, omnipresent narration versus third person throughout the novel that switched back and forth, and there was a lot of excess detail going on for every little movement, for every little character, and then you even get inside the dog's head, and the dog is talking about how he feels, and how he feels about his owner, and how he feels about other people, and, ooh, that's a good thing. Ooh, I like to take a pee outside with my master. That's us spending quality time together. When you're doing a close third and you're including thoughts, we only need to have one character at a time per chapter. When you switch between characters paragraph to paragraph, it is confusing, disorienting, and it actually breaks the immersion of the reader with the character. I also think that Stay Tuned could have benefited from slowing down the narration and the movement a bit. I know I just was like, it had too much detail, but it could have slowed down in order to world build. It introduced names of things and how things worked in regular society, sometimes successful by integrating them into the characters' movements and daily lives and action. But other times, the reader had no sense of technology. Consider the introduction of the assistant technology versus the look. We were never really told what the assistant looks like or how it's different from the next-gen look. A perfect opportunity to fix this would have been when Tino was talking initially to Frank about getting the look, and Frank thinks about how his family would want it. And, you know, something like, they aren't going to be happy with the assistants once they see the look. Who wants to carry around a screen under their arm all day when you can just have it implanted in your eyes with both of your arms free? That would have been a great way to show a comparison without a whole bunch of extra, you know, talking baggage or exposition in the narration. The dog's role in the story was kind of weird because it acted more like a confidant, so in a lot of chapters, in the middle of them or at the end of them, Frank would go in there and then just recap everything that the reader just experienced or gave Frank a chance to opine to somebody, and it just proved as a repetition thing. There was also some writing in a tunnel, and what I mean by that is stuff is said to characters that they should have already known. The easiest and quickest example of get to this is when Frank is initially talking to his dog in chapter 1 and is talking about Jerome at work, and he says, you would like him if they met. But Frank had been working with Jerome for years now, and so that conversation felt like they would have had it already. It also comes out when Frank takes his family to the potato restaurant and they're all in the car and Frank is looking over his family and being disgusted and surprised at how fake they look. But that's their normal way of being. It's not like it's the first time that he has seen them that way. But the narration makes it seem like that is. A change in the mood in the narration to just describe them as casually fake would have been a much more powerful statement on how normal it was that they lived in a society that accepted fakeness as just the status quo. I already sort of talked about this, but I feel like I need to say it again because it was such an issue. Subtlety is the name of the game when it comes to being sinister. Just like how everyone being so outwardly racist and when no one is watching didn't really work for Alyssa Cole, everyone being so straightforward in their malice hurt Stay Tuned. An obvious example of this would be the sales rep when the family went to get their looks and Maggie was having trouble. And the guy says, all of our models have a recreation of a world appearing behind what you are viewing. For example, if I had mine on right now, you would appear as, forgive me for saying this, an hourglass-shaped woman. So that implies, he's obviously front forward insulting her. It would have been more meaningful, manipulative, and sinister if it had been more subtle, like the look succeeds where the assistant did not, in taking technological immersion to the next level. Have you ever heard of augmented reality? No? Augmented reality gives you the world as it should be, but better. The freedom and ability to be the best version of yourself, but still better. Now, don't you worry. Everything in augmented reality is the real world, but better. You see how that is more sinister than, if you bought this from me, you would have, excuse me, but you would be hot. The other option makes it more subtle and more spooky. But it's also obvious that they're lying, they're trying to get a trick. The author sometimes struggles, it felt like, with being judgmental about the own ideas that he was presenting because he didn't like the ideas that were being presented, or that's why it felt more like the author expressing frustration for what he saw as the status quo. So Frank puts on the look and he describes his wife as perfection, but because of the specific words he chose, he came off as more judgmental and he was disgusted, and the description was not sexy, and that, more to me, exposed the author's perspective and judgment on the situation, rather than saying Frank saw this beautiful woman. The repetition in this book really hurt me, but the reader isn't stupid. The author could have repeated ideas to show the mob mentality without overwriting and repeating stuff so much. To the extent that it was done, it read less like mob mentality brainwashing on repeat and more like, don't you get it? Do you get what I'm saying though? I have to make sure that you get it because this is important. Do you get it? There's some failed logic in here for the follow-through. So the family goes to the mall and Maggie and all of them are looking at these gender bend models where you get to see yourself but as the opposite version of your biological sex. And Maggie is told that she can just change her persona in the VR thing to look like a male avatar. However, the sales rep comes up to Maggie's son and tells him that they've got surgeries that can change him. So how come she gets the VR change, but he gets a real life physical change? That didn't really make any sense to me. You also get a whole lot of thinking in this book. Many thousands, if not tens of thousands of words are spent with Frank thought about this, and then Frank thought about that, and then Frank thought about how he wanted to go and do this thing. That slows down the story, it slows down momentum, it kills tension, and it's often repeating information that is unnecessary. The tension in the story really didn't seem to build as it went on because every single time the news media came on, they were constantly pushing the same drum, and it had already been okayed that people attack and kill the blanks by the time that it was saying, and now doctors can refuse to give service to those who refuse to put on the look. Okay, but we've already said that they get kicked out of their house and they can be murdered in the street, so saying that they can't see a doctor is kind of a given. But that was one of the last things. And so when you start out at 150 on your discrimination meter, then there's nowhere for you to go. And that's kind of what this story did, is it started at the most extreme examples, especially when you got Waco, and then you just jump onto doing street people, but you do street people the same way you did Waco, it's just in the city instead of the rural, and you're seeing the same exact story, but with no escalation, just repeat the curse words, and you start out with the worst curse words that you can or the worst labels that you can with somebody, and there is no escalation, no story arcing to get to a harder and harder point where character has to make a decision and then fall off. And you'd think that the ledger would be an important part of the storyline and of the final climax of the story, and that the off-grid section would also be part of that. But neither of those two things ever came up, and they felt like red herrings that should have been important, but somehow weren't, and I don't know why they weren't used. These are the two things that stood out to me as the MO or the message of the novel. One was with Frank's inner dialogue, and he said, but he could never watch a movie, a program, the news, read, or listen to music without the knowledge that its purpose was to indoctrinate him, to distract him, make him docile, while he performed menial tasks between shopping trips to direct his anger at his neighbors, to hide the fact that the walls were closing in and freedom was gone. Then, when Frank finds Jerome in that last bit, he says, "What's the plan?" And Jerome answers,
I never really thought about it. I just knew that there was no future. Not for any of us. We couldn't speak. No one could hear us. The look would not show anyone the truth. Even if I found a person and talked to them and reasoned with them, convinced them that what they were doing is wrong and that would lead to their death, they would forget it as soon as I walked away. No one cares. Not even about themselves. So I was happy to work on fighting back, and now I'm happy to kill. Maybe it's the only way that they'll listen. But probably not. I'll kill a lot tonight, and I'll kill a lot more in the future. That's my purpose now. I'm past the point of no return. You'll understand when you get there.
So we get to the end of the book, and what super didn't work for me is Frank is a whiny little bitch where in the end he says, I can't live or trust anything anymore, and I can't enjoy life because it's all a lie. He complains that he has no autonomy and no ability to stop anything, while the whole book, the whole time, he didn't try to talk to his kids, he didn't try to talk to his wife, he was subservient to the system, he knew what was happening but didn't resist. He only resisted just enough that he wouldn't get in trouble, and he wouldn't lose his comforts. But then he pretends that he's better than everyone else with the ledgers and the dog and the questioning things. Then he blames everyone else for his lack of courage and his lack of doing anything. And then he says he has no other choice, no autonomy, and he can just be bad because he pretends that he's better than everybody else by keeping the ledger and tracking the truth, only to resist as little as humanly possible so he doesn't lose his comforts. And then he takes advantage of the chaos one night and says, it's not my fault. I'm just programmed to be like this. Excuse me. Frank doesn't have the balls to stand up to his family or his friends or his coworkers or his neighborhoods, even though he acknowledges that everything around him is wrong. He acknowledges that actions in society are wrong, but in the end he sees his only option is to kill everyone, conform, and he has no control over whatever. He's just a byproduct or a product in general. And no, bro, you're a coward. A coward only made more cowardly by rejecting the responsibility of your choices and the role you played in creating and continuing a society you hate and that hates you. And one more thing that this author did is that the government stopped being the enemy of the protagonist and the countrymen, neighbors, and family became the enemy. There was no getting back his wife or kids. They were just evil. Jerome was popping the heads off of neighbors, not the government. This was a nihilist, cynical comment on his frustrations of what he sees right now. And that's ultimately why this isn't a dystopian and why it didn't work. It is just somebody's frustration, and he's going, well, I'm this close to giving up because everything else sucks. At least that's how it felt to me in reading this book. Couple missed opportunities in this book that I really wish had been taken. Tino and Frank are getting on the bus, and Tino pushes why he wants a look because he wants to know what's going on immediately. He doesn't want to be a follower, and so he says we need to get the look so we get the information just 2 or 3 seconds faster, because other people at the bus stop got the information of when the bus was coming sooner because they had the looks. I didn't understand why Frank didn't bring the dog home bacon when he said he was going to bring him stuff home from the store. I wish that the first act had built up the story and the horror of the hill people as something that we never really saw and we didn't understand and Frank didn't understand, but he fell for that lie, so then in Act 2 he could be waking up to the lie or was waking up to the lie and finding out the truth, and that would have had a more successful story arc. And then you could have that awakening with Frank, would have made it a much stronger story of an awakening and fighting against a fake and lying society where that's just the norm. Some mixed logic when Frank was constantly looking in the self-driving cars around him. There was a mixture of people being pacified by technology and stuck to their screens in a boomer-esque manner, but also people being frantic and impatient in their vehicles in order to get home so they can be on technology again. And it either need to be one or the other because they couldn't be constantly pacified and also stuck to their screens to the point that they don't see crazy guy yelling at the side of the road. On page 71, Frank is at the shop getting a look with his family, and he's listening to the sales rep talk about the look when he thinks, I've heard this conversation from Tino. This was a great opportunity earlier in the novel when Tino could have been talking about the look and parroting the exact same things that the sales rep said, and this could have shown a mental connection. In the look shop, there was also a missed opportunity by not having characters create their avatars right then and there, with Frank seeing that his daughter appear one way that he wouldn't want to see her, creating her sexy avatar, and then the sales rep being like, oh no, you can also stop certain people from seeing certain avatars, and so then Frank could watch that sexual avatar be made, but then disappear into this other one that looks like, daddy's little girl, and so Frank knows that his daughter is outright lying to him at times. I was also so disappointed that the slogan for the media was love and share and not love and and not share and believe. You know, if you enjoyed the story, make sure you share and believe it, because you wouldn't want to be caught not believing it, right? Like, it was such a good opportunity to make it share and believe. I didn't understand why Frank didn't initially... Frank's wife complained about his dog a number of times before the government workers came to take his dog, and I didn't understand why Frank didn't, one, leave his dog with the street people to begin with the first time that he took it, because he knew that his family was having an issue, and then I also didn't understand why the government workers didn't just take the dog and then, like, kill it. That's what I expected. Because the government is so tyrannical in this, why would they not just take the dog and kill it? In the last chapter, when the family is described as being bug-like, there's a huge missed opportunity with them not scurrying away from Frank when he comes near. You know, scurrying away because they don't want to be seen, because they're like bugs and cockroaches. And Maggie, you know, trying to run to the bathroom to yell through the door, or Joy rolling off the bed and trying to crawl under the bed, but feeling satisfied enough when her head is underneath that she feels like she can't be seen because she doesn't want to be seen by her dad. And there was also an opportunity that was missed when Maggie, you know, didn't want to be seen, but she was yelling at Frank to put on his look while standing in the same room, and I felt like she should have been yelling at him through the walls to show that disconnect and that fear of being seen, that she refused to stand in the same room as him unless he verified that he was wearing the look. So this is the bonus section, just WTF lines from what I read. The dog grinned and thumped his tail approvingly. He could see Frank was making changes and wanted to encourage him. Well, dear, Maggie began, struggling to reestablish her matriarchy. They were facing each other the way they always had sex. He had not been holding a breast, but a roll of back fat. I didn't know that's how back fat worked. Frank stared stupidly at the weapons while his stomach lurched and his testicles made a protest similar to what is felt in a free fall. Ellie let out a sigh of pleasure. Frank caught a coffee-scented waft of air with a hint of bad breath. Pleasant and gone in an instant, he sniffed the air more greedily, surprised at his attraction to it, the smell of another human. He wanted her admiration. More than that, he wanted her adoration. He wanted her love, but this wasn't really it either. He wanted her lust, he wanted her uncontrollable, then tamed, fucked into submission. He wanted her to want him, worship him. This is Frank thinking of Ellie, and you get, you know, the vibe that Frank's not really a great person, and or he doesn't really understand what love is if he's looking at somebody and wanting them to worship him. Point being, I don't care if you include your politics in your writing. Authors always do and always will. We can't escape our own perspectives. Personally, though, I prefer more subtlety in dystopian and political writing. You know, tell a story of a character. Tell a story of somebody struggling with the paradigm of what's around them, not have a political essay dressed up as a fiction. Also, I hope it's obvious from this response that I don't care if I agree or disagree with someone's political opinion. I'm looking at the mechanics of a story and the way that the perspective is written. I'll evaluate it the same way based on what I see. This book might be enjoyable for those who feel mistreated by social media and tech and popular culture and would like someone to empathize with them because you feel crazy that you're seeing something wrong and nobody else is reacting with you, though Frank does end up being a bad guy. But I'm just a robot. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you've read this book, if you're going to read this book, what you think of what I have shared above, what you look for in a dystopian, you know, anything that comes to mind from this, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Bottom line is, we learned that Frank is a simp. Also, society wasn't wrong about him being a scumbag. There are lots of people who feel like you, like the Joker, and you get what you freaking deserve, and they're just waiting for their chance to revel in the chaos and do their worst. Again, I'm just one robot. Until next time, I know I had a lot to say on this. I was a little disorganized. Sorry for the disorganization. But until next time, thank you for stopping by, and have a good weekend. Don't die. Dear Madam Astra, that's me. We regret to inform you that on August 1st, your employer, Agatha Jane Benedict, owner of the Benedict estate, peacefully passed away in her sleep. Oh, that's so sad. Wait. Let me try that again. Ah. Oh my goodness. That's so sad. Yeah, I think I'm ready. With millions of dollars on the line and the opportunity for your every need to be taken care of for life, tell me, is there anything more valuable than that? I didn't think so. Dead End Drive is a dark comedy novel that makes 3 promises. 1, an illustrious estate in Louisiana. 2, an opulent dinner affair for all in attendance. And 3, and most importantly of all, lots and lots of competitive murder. So if you're looking for a cozy book to settle in with for the spooky season, I've only got one question for you. Will I see you at the whale reading?